They laughed when I walked into the reunion hall holding 3 tiny hands instead of a champagne glass. The music was loud, the lights were golden, and the air smelled like expensive perfume and old memories. But none of that drowned out the sound of my ex-wife's voice cutting through the room like broken glass. She didn't even try to whisper, she just looked at me, at our triplets in their neatly pressed thrift store dresses, and smiled the kind of smile that burns. In that moment, I wished the polished marble floor would crack open and swallow me whole. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet strength of people who keep going even when the world laughs at them, please take a second to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this matter, and so do you. 5 years earlier, I had been the one with everything. A stable job as a mid-level project manager, a tidy suburban home, and a wife who loved hosting dinner parties. When she told me she was pregnant, I imagined 1 crib, 1 baby blanket, 1 tiny heartbeat. Instead, we got 3 heartbeats, 3 cries, 3 little girls who arrived 2 months early and changed the rhythm of my life forever. The strain began before they could even walk. Sleepless nights became constant arguments. Medical bills piled up. My promotion slowed because I refused overtime shifts. She said she felt invisible, trapped, exhausted. I said we just needed time. She said she needed more than time, she needed freedom. The day she left, she didn't slam the door. She just placed her wedding ring on the kitchen counter and whispered that she couldn't live like this anymore. I remember standing there, 1 baby balanced on my shoulder, 2 crying in their bassinets, staring at that small circle of gold as if it were a verdict. She moved to another city within weeks. Child support never came. Calls became rare. Eventually, they stopped. Raising triplets alone is not heroic. It is messy and terrifying. It is waking up at 3 a.m. to wash bottles while calculating whether your bank account can survive another month. It is cutting your own hair in the bathroom mirror because you can't afford a barber. It is learning how to braid 3 different textures of hair while watching tutorials at midnight. I lost my job when I missed too many days caring for sick toddlers. The company called it restructuring, but I knew the truth. Employers like flexibility. Triplets are not flexible. For a while, I delivered groceries and drove for rideshare apps. Sometimes I strapped car seats into the back and prayed for short trips. Pride became a luxury I could no longer afford. Yet every evening, no matter how tired I was, the girls would crawl into my lap and tell me about their day at preschool. They believed I was the strongest man in the world. They didn't see the eviction notice once taped to our door. They didn't hear me crying in the shower so they wouldn't worry. To them, I was just Dad, the one who made pancake sundaes and silly bedtime stories. When the reunion invitation arrived in the mail, I almost threw it away. 10 years since graduation, a chance to reconnect. A reminder of who I used to be before life humbled me. I hadn't planned to go, but my daughters found the envelope and begged me to attend. They said they wanted to see where Daddy used to study and meet his old friends. I didn't have the heart to tell them that most of those friends had slowly disappeared when my life got complicated. I borrowed a suit from my brother. It was slightly loose at the shoulders but clean. I dressed the girls in matching navy dresses I found on sale. As we drove to the venue, a luxury hotel glowing against the night sky, I felt like an imposter approaching a world that no longer belonged to me. Inside, laughter echoed beneath crystal chandeliers. People recognized me, but their smiles held curiosity rather than warmth. They asked polite questions about my career, about my wife. I answered honestly. I said I was freelancing. I said I was raising my daughters alone. I saw the flicker in their eyes, the quick calculation of success and failure. And then she appeared. My ex-wife looked radiant, dressed in silk, her hair styled perfectly. She had remarried, I later learned, to a surgeon. She approached us like a queen surveying commoners. She knelt down to the girls, complimented their dresses, then stood and looked at me with a smirk that I'll never forget. She joked loudly about how some people peak in high school. Laughter rippled around us. My face burned. I wanted to leave. I almost did. But my daughters squeezed my hands tighter, sensing the shift in the air. They looked up at me with confusion, and I forced a smile because fathers are not allowed to fall apart in front of their children. That was when I noticed him. He stood near the edge of the ballroom, older than most of us, dressed in a simple charcoal suit without flashy accessories. He wasn't laughing, he was watching, not with pity, but with something closer to recognition. Later, I would learn his name was Victor Hale, a self-made billionaire who had funded scholarships for our school years ago. He had returned as a guest speaker, though he had not yet taken the stage. At that moment, he was simply a stranger who saw my humiliation and didn't look away. After my ex drifted off to rejoin her circle, I knelt to adjust one of my daughter's shoes. When I stood up, he was in front of me. His handshake was firm, his eyes steady. He asked about the girls, not in the shallow way people make small talk, but with genuine curiosity. I told him their names, their favorite subjects, how one loved painting, another loved math, and the third wanted to become a veterinarian because she once rescued a stray kitten. He listened like their dreams mattered. When he asked what I did for work, I hesitated. Shame rose in my throat. But before I could downplay it, my daughters proudly explained that I worked all the time and still made it to every school play. Something shifted in his expression. He nodded slowly, as if confirming something only he could see. The rest of the evening blurred. I avoided my ex and stayed near the back. The billionaire eventually took the stage and spoke about resilience, about how failure often disguises itself as humiliation before transforming into opportunity. I felt as though the words were aimed directly at me, though he never mentioned my name. A week later, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. It was Victor's assistant. He wanted to meet. I assumed it was Charity, and my pride bristled. I almost declined. But curiosity won. His office overlooked the city skyline. It was elegant but not ostentatious. He didn't waste time. He told me he had researched my background after the reunion. He knew about my previous career, my record of strong performance before my dismissal. He said he admired something he couldn't teach: commitment. He had built his empire from nothing after becoming a widower with a newborn son decades earlier. He recognized the exhaustion in my eyes because he had seen it in his own reflection once. He wasn't offering charity, he was offering partnership, a leadership position in a new community initiative aimed at supporting single parents entering the workforce. He believed I could run it because I understood the struggle firsthand. I remember gripping the armrest of my chair, trying to steady my breathing. Opportunities like that don't knock twice. Yet fear whispered that I wasn't enough. That humiliation at the reunion still echoed in my ears. But then I pictured my daughters' faces. I thought about the eviction notice, the late-night budgeting, the cracked kitchen tiles I couldn't afford to fix. I said yes. The months that followed were a blur of hard work and healing. I poured myself into the project, creating training programs, childcare partnerships, and mentorship networks. For the first time in years, I felt more than survival. I felt purpose. The girls adjusted quickly to our new routine. We moved into a modest but comfortable apartment closer to my office. They decorated their shared bedroom with glow-in-the-dark stars and handmade paintings. Word about the initiative spread. Local news covered it, donations increased, single mothers and fathers began finding stable jobs through our programs. Every success story felt like redemption, not just for them, but for me. Nearly a year later, our school invited me back, not as a struggling alumnus, but as a keynote speaker at a fundraising gala sponsored by Victor's Foundation. I stood backstage, heart pounding, remembering the humiliation of the previous reunion. This time, my daughters waited in the front row wearing bright smiles instead of uncertainty. When I stepped onto the stage, the applause felt surreal. I spoke about failure, about pride, about how life can unravel in ways we never plan. I didn't mention my ex. I didn't need to. I spoke about my daughters, about how they taught me that strength isn't loud and success isn't always glamorous. Sometimes it's simply showing up every single day. After the speech, people approached me with respect instead of pity. Among them was my ex. Her expression was different now, less sharp, more reflective. She congratulated me quietly. There was no mockery this time, just a strange, silent acknowledgement that life had shifted. But the real victory wasn't in her softened tone or the applause. It was in the way my daughters ran to hug me afterward, their laughter echoing through the hall. It was in Victor's approving nod from across the room. It was in the knowledge that humiliation had not defined my story. If this journey has touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel for more stories of hope. Your support keeps these stories alive. And before we reach the end, I have one special request. Comment the word resilience below if you believe that setbacks can become setups for something greater. Today, our life is not perfect. I still juggle schedules and pack lunches before sunrise. I still worry about the future, but the fear no longer controls me. I have seen what can grow from the ashes of embarrassment. I have learned that sometimes. The person who notices you at your lowest point isn't there to pity you, but to remind you who you were always capable of becoming. The night I was humiliated at that reunion, I thought my story had reached its lowest chapter. I didn't know that somewhere in that crowded ballroom stood a man who saw beyond my wrinkled suit and tired eyes. He saw a father who refused to quit. And in the end, that was worth more than applause, more than wealth, more than revenge. It was worth everything.